Welcome to Out of Turn, the series that combines board games and me. I'm Justin, the host. Welcome to part 4 of my 5-part series, my top 50 board games of all time as of January 2021. If you have not seen the previous parts, I provided a link to the playlist to get you caught up. So this series is an introduction to me and the channel, so you can check out what games I'm into and see if our tastes align and if you might be interested in hearing what I have to say in the future. If you are new to board gaming in general and you just stumbled upon me, well, hello, nice to meet you. And you've got 50 game recommendations flying your way. So in part 4 here, we're covering games 20 through 11 on my countdown. We're almost near the end. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right, game number 20 shares some similarities with the previous entry on the list. This is Space Base, which has some similarities to Foodies in the previous video. What these games both have in common is that you get to play whether or not it's your turn. And let me explain how that works in a second. Each player has a board in front of them that is their space base with slots for cards numbered 1 through 12. And on each player's turn, they're going to be rolling a pair of dice. And then everyone's going to look at their board for the matching numbers that were rolled and activate the cards that are in front of them. So they've got two options. They can activate each individual die number. So let's say I rolled a 5 and a 6. I may activate my card on number 5 and activate my card on number 6. So I got to do two things. They're not as strong, but they're going to come up more often. Or I could combine them and trigger my card number 11. So those higher numbers, they don't come up as often, obviously. But if you build those up, it's kind of like winning the lottery when you actually get it. So, do you play it safe and build up those more common numbers and get to do things more frequently? Or do you put all your eggs in the higher basket and try to win the game with just a few powerful moves? It's a race to 40 points. And it's a game where you are playing no matter whether or not it's your turn. So even if someone else is rolling the dice, you're watching because you're going to get to activate cards on your board as well. There's no downtime. Everyone's engaged and interested in what's going on every single move. That's why I like it so much. It's number 20 on my list, Space Base. Number 19 is a game I love to take to places with me. It is Campy Creatures. Obviously, it's a very compact box, and it's also a quick, easy to explain, fun game with a fun theme, as you could see. So the theme of it is sort of these like 50s, 60s B movies, monsters, sci-fi, all that kind of stuff. And each player's got a hand of cards numbered 0 through 9, and each card has a monster and a special ability. So in the center of the table, there are going to be dealt out mortal cards. These mortals are humans that the monsters are chasing. And ultimately, this is a set collection game, meaning you're trying to collect sets of the same types of humans that score in different ways. There may be a human that, the number of points doubles for each additional one you get, and it kind of grows exponentially. There's one that is worth positive points if you have an odd number and negative points if you have an even number. So you want to try to get just the right amount so you don't lose a bunch of points. But anyway, everyone picks one of the cards in their hands, and depending on what number, you get to draft a card from the mortals in the middle first. Now, again, a lot of these monsters have special abilities on them, so there's a little bit of chaos and mix-up before everyone gets to draft their cards. You play 3 rounds, and then, of course, at the end of the game, the person with the highest points wins. I think this is a game that has sort of replaced Sushi Go in my friends and family circle. Sushi Go being a simple pass the cards around drafting game. This is not quite that, but I think it lives in the same space. It adds a couple of more interesting wrinkles and decisions, and it's a more fun theme. We pull it out all the time. It's a fun one, number 19, Campy Creatures. All right, for game number 18, I have 2 questions for you. 1, do you like making potions? And number 2, do you like pressing your luck so fast and furious that it tends to blow up in your face? If you answered yes to both of these questions, let's play the Quacks of Quedlinburg. This is a delightful game in which, as I said, you are creating potions. And the way it works is you've got a bag unique to you that has potion ingredients in it, and you're pressing your luck in this game, pulling out one ingredient at a time to add to your potion. So the more ingredients that you add to your potion, the more powerful it is, In other words, the more points you get to play around with, buying more ingredients, and of course, ultimately having a higher score in the game. Where the pressure luck aspect comes in is there are certain ingredients that are volatile. And once you hit a certain number of them, your potion blows up. Now you don't lose everything, you just lose some very important opportunities to build up your system. So it's great to have that sort of gambling aspect. I like a little bit of gambling in a game. Not a huge fan of total blind luck, but this is a gambling element I can get into. It is fun to see just how far you can take that potion. I'm going to pull out just one more ingredient because the thing I want out in the market costs that much more. And, this could blow up in my face, but man, if it doesn't, I'm going to get that ingredient and it's really going to put me over the top. Really fun game. It's been a while since I played it. I actually can't wait to play it again. That is the Quacks of Quedlinburg. My number 17 is a bit of a cheat because it's not a game per se. It's a series or a system, the Unlock series. Now, Unlock is sort of an escape room or a puzzle that's mostly a deck of cards and in some cases a couple of extra components where you're laying them out to create little rooms or areas to explore and solve puzzles. And it comes with an app that times you, or you might have to type in codes. It's a neat little system because you're basically coming up with numbers that lead you to the next card to flip over. There are a million of these. Its barrier of entry is very low because each one costs, I think, $10 or $15 new. So you can buy one and try it and see if you like it. They also give you a difficulty level 1 through 3, so you can try an easy one and work your way up. These are great for a night in after a long week. My girlfriend and I have spent plenty of evenings pulling one of these out and playing together. We like cooperative games. We like, working as a team. And I think there's really maybe no better way to spend an hour doing that than pulling out an Unlock. I highly recommend it. It's easy to try. And if you like it, you've got a million more to go through. They just keep putting them out. They've got everything from Alice in Wonderland to Star Wars themes at this point. Really fun. Number 17, Unlock. Game number 16 may have hit the table with my game group more than any other game. It's Salem 1692. This is a social deduction game, meaning there are basically two teams operating in the players. And by the way, the player count on this is up to 12 people. So this is a great game that you can pull out, even with lots of company and mixed company, because it's not that complicated. So most players in this game are going to be villagers in Salem, and a small handful are secretly going to be witches. So the villagers are trying to suss out the witches and get rid of them. Meanwhile, the witches are trying to kill the villagers or convert them into witches as well. It's played in rounds, as you can maybe tell if you're familiar with the game Werewolf. This very much has that feel, but there is a little more game to it because in the day phase, everyone's got a hand of cards that they're playing, and this will sort of manipulate what's going on in the game. You can tie people together so that if one person dies, the person they're tethered to also dies. You can cast spells or undo things. There's a lot of manipulation that can happen. And then, of course, the most fun part of the game, the accusations. So the way that works in this game is each player has a number of cards in front of them, and someone can accuse them of being a witch at any time. I won't say at any time. It's, once they've built up a certain number of accusation points. And then you get to flip one of those cards in front of the player that you're accusing. And it'll either reveal nothing or it'll reveal they're a witch. Now, here's a fun twist on it. At the end of each round, everyone takes one of the unflipped accusation cards from their neighbor. So as they get moved around the table in each round, the card that designates you as a witch could move around. Now, once you've gotten that card even once, you're a witch for the whole rest of the game. But as it moves around the table, you're going to infect more witches. And the villagers can't win until they find all of the active witch cards in the game. So I'll be honest, my gaming group loves to hurl accusations at each other. I don't think I've ever played a game of this where someone wasn't accused of being a witch within 2 minutes. I mean, with utter conviction. But this is a fun game to kind of get that out of your system. It creates a lot of lasting memories. It's one of my absolute favorite social deduction games. That's why it's so high on the list. Check it out, Salem 1692.
Game number 15 is making its second appearance on this channel. There was only one video on this channel prior to this countdown, and it was a review of this game, Ice Cool. Ice Cool is without a doubt the biggest crowd pleaser in my collection. This is a game that I can pull out for anyone. I pulled it out in parties, like with adults. I've pulled it out with my family, including older family and kids in the family. Everyone loves it. Basically, Ice Cool is a game where you are flicking little penguin figures around a board. I say a board, really, it's several boxes that you connect together and create walls and doorways. And you're trying to flick these penguins through doorways to collect fish. Meanwhile, one player each round is the hall monitor, and they are trying to catch the other penguins, the other players. So while everyone's running around this school of sorts, trying to collect fish, one player is trying to basically tag everyone before they can do it. It's a lot of silly fun. It's what we call a dexterity game, meaning rather than being a mental challenge or a strategic challenge, it's physical. Again, you're literally flicking things. And what's so fun about that is no matter how good you think you get at this game, there's always the chance that you're going to screw up your flick and just have your little penguin spinning in place and go nowhere. And there's also a chance that no matter how bad you think you are at this game, you may get it just right, flick your penguin, and it ricochets and goes through 3 rooms, and you collect 2 of your fish in one turn. And as fun as it is to laugh at somebody for having a terrible flick, it's even more fun to cheer your opponents for pulling off an awesome move. And this is a game that is, perfect and entertaining to play under any circumstances with any people. That is why it's number 15 on my list. It's so darn high because it's so darn fun. It's called Ice Cool. My 14th favorite game of all time is one of the games that got me into the hobby side of board gaming. That'll sound familiar to some of you. It is Pandemic. I think Pandemic is also the game that really popularized cooperative games. Again, that's a game where all the players are playing as a team to beat the game rather than competing against each other. And Pandemic has a lot of really interesting mechanisms that have, I think, pioneered and really set the tone for how most cooperative games work. So in this game, there are several diseases breaking out across the world. And the board is literally a map of the world. All the spaces are cities. And each player is a specialist who's got a unique thing that they can do to help curb these pandemics. Okay. So you're going around the board trying to remove cubes that represent, the actual disease. At the same time, you're collecting sets of cards because those card sets are what cures the disease. So there's one element of the game that's just containment, trying to keep the pandemic from spreading and spilling over into more cities, because the more that happens, the closer you are to losing the game. So there's that element, and then there's the set collection where you're trying to cure the disease. And once you cure the disease, it's very easy to wipe it out off the board from city to city. Lots of cool stuff going on in this game. It's a game that is essentially a giant puzzle, and it works a little bit differently each time you play. It's very exciting. You feel the tension. It's a healthy tension that I always enjoy. Number 14, Pandemic. My number 13 may or may not be the highest social deduction game on my list. It's Deception Murder in Hong Kong. And what makes this game so great to me and to my group is I think it marries a couple of exciting things from some of our other favorite games. So our previous on this countdown was Mysterium, a game where one person silently gives clues to all the other players. And then there's Salem 1692, which I just talked about, where we revel in flinging accusations at each other, pointing fingers in each other's faces. Deception combines those 2 elements. So essentially, there's been a murder, and one player is going to play as the forensic scientist who's going to be silently giving clues about the murder to everyone else. Meanwhile, one of the other players is the murderer. And all the players have a few cards laid out in front of them that are murder weapons or pieces of evidence. And the murderer, before the game starts, picks a murder weapon and a piece of evidence. And the forensic scientist is trying to get clues to point to that, while everyone else is having a discussion about what do these clues mean. They're looking at each other's cards in front of them, hurling accusations. I think he's the killer because A, B, and C. Meanwhile, the killer is trying to throw off everyone off their trail. This is a game that gets going right away. There's no ramp up in this game. I mean, you can start getting in each other's faces, so to speak, within moments. I mean that it's in a fun way, in a silly way, to call your friend or your family member a murderer. It's a lot of good natured fun. Another high player count game. I think this one supports up to 10 people, and never a bad time with this one. It's a little group dependent, meaning depending on the energy of your group may dictate what you get out of the game. But I will say, even with that, it's really fun. I think even the most reserved or uncertain people get one or two games under their belts, and then they start to get into it. And each game of this is probably 15 minutes long, so it's one that you can play back to back and build up that sort of rapport and tension and get people more comfortable with the game. It's a great one to pull out in social situations. Number 13 on the list, Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. Number 12 is one of the oldest and probably one of the most obscure games on this countdown. It is Fantasy Business. This is such a neat game. The way it works is each player is essentially a merchant of fantasy goods, weapons, potions, that kind of stuff. So at the beginning of each round, there are some cards placed out. One card equal, the number of cards equal to the number of players. And then there's an auction. And, everyone's trying to buy these goods, trying to, create sets or maybe buy special cards that give you special abilities. And then after that, there's a phase of selling. So at that point, all the different goods are sold by everyone. So I may have some swords. You may also have some swords. Here's the interesting twist. Only the player who sets the swords at the lowest price is going to actually collect money. So you and I are going to conspire with each other. We may agree, let's set our swords at the highest allowed rates so that we can maximize our profits. We're going to set our swords at 12 coins each. And then we secretly set our price. So maybe I believe you when you say you're going to set it at 12 coins, but you secretly set yours for 10 because you think Justin's going to sell me out. He's going to do his swords for 11 coins, and you sneak just under and collect all the money. So I'm going to do 10 just to cut him off even more. Very, very bluffy, very, deceptive. I've mentioned before, these types of games go over really well in my group, and especially with my daughter. This is a game she loves as well. And let me tell you, my 10-year-old she'll pull one over on you faster than anyone I know. Wonderful game. It's about 45 minutes to play, so there's a good length to it, but you definitely go on a journey because trust builds up or fades away. You can build trust with someone over, 7 rounds, and then that last one really screw them over. That's the fun of this game. Love it, love it, love it. Fantasy Business. Number 11, the final game in this video is, I think, safe to say at this point, a modern classic, very modern, just a few years old, Azul. Azul is, among all the games behind me here, I think one with the loveliest table presence for people who aren't into the hobby. What I mean by table presence is when you lay the game out on the table, it's very eye-catching. People who see it, they're grabbed by it and, what is this? And the main reason for that is most of the components in this game are these tiles that kind of, they represent these ceramic tiles. You're actually making a wall in this game, sort of like creating a mosaic wall. And you're drafting sets of these tiles from the middle and trying to collect the exact number needed to place one in your mosaic. What I mean by that is, there's several lines, and on the first line, exactly one tile will allow you to place one over. On the next line, you got to get exactly 2. If you get exactly 2, you can place one over. On the next line, you have to get exactly 3. If you do that, you place it over. You get the idea. So what you're trying to do is, in each round of the game, try to get as many tiles into your mosaic as possible. So then you can, in the next round, try to get another one right next to it. You get more points as these tiles, connect to each other in a row or in a column. The more that connect to each other, the more points you get. And then as you complete rows or columns, you get extra points too. This one, it's very easy to wrap your head around. That doesn't mean the game is any less thoughtful, interesting, and I would say strategic, but I think this is more of a tactical game. Your best laid plans will go the moment the person before you grabs all the blue tiles and denies you the ability to complete your set on your board. So, this is another one of those games. I think it's very easy to get people who aren't board gamers to check out and try. And it's one of those that I think about playing all the time. I'm always ready to grab it off the shelf. I don't get to do it as often as I'd like, but it's one I'm always kind of like, oh, might we do Azul tonight? So that's number 11 on my list, Azul. All right, that concludes part 4 in my top 50 board games of all time. There's just one video left here. It's going to be the top 10, number 10 all the way up to number 1. You can see a lot of games behind me. You've heard me talk about 40 of them. I wonder if you could guess which games are left. What is in my top 10? Well, I'm going to tell you in our next video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you'll know when I post it. And after that, I look forward to talking about more games with you under different circumstances. Have you played any of the games that I talked about in this video? Did any of them jump out to you as ones you might like to try? I would love to hear what your thoughts are. Go ahead and leave a comment below. And until next time, I'm Justin. This is Out of Turn. See you later.